What's up? KHAO Soy is an intensely flavorful coconut curry soup with noodles inside and fried on top. It's from northern Thailand, and I'm not joking when I say it's the best tasting soup on earth. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make a version at home that only takes about 30 minutes using ingredients that you can get at your local supermarket. This is Weeknighting. To get started, I'll need some chicken, specifically 1.5 pounds or 700 grams of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. To get these ready for the soup, I'll sprinkle them generously with salt on both sides. In Thailand, I think they tend to use whole bone-in chickens instead of boneless chicken meat. Delicious as that is, it tends to be hard to eat and take longer to cook, so I'm going with something that I can cook, chop, and mix into the broth in about 15 minutes. Once these thighs are salted, I'll scoot them out of the way while I make the most important part of this soup. That's the curry paste. There's one ingredient here that I think might be kind of hard to get, and that's the lemongrass. In American supermarkets, if they had it, it would usually be by the herbs. If they don't have it, I would say that's totally fine. Just make it up with extra ginger. Now, to turn these aromatics into a paste, I'm going to use my microplane. In Thailand, I think they would use a mortar and pestle for this, and they would crush the aromatics, but that takes a long time, and I don't have a good one, so the rasp grater it is. First, I'll grab a knob of ginger, and as you guys know, I generally don't peel my ginger, especially when I'm grating it, especially on a weeknight. I like the microplane for this work because it tends to turn fibrous things like ginger and lemongrass into a very pungent, juicy pulp that's perfect for a paste. Feel free to use a food processor for this stuff or just mince it with a knife on the cutting board if you don't have a microplane. Behind the ginger, I'll grate my lemongrass, and yes, that will go on the microplane, it's just a little bit more fibrous. Then garlic, 6 to 7 cloves. Watch your fingers on that one because they get pretty close. And the last thing to get microplaned for this paste is going to be 1 whole lime. I go pretty deep into the pithy part because I really like the mild bitterness that it brings. The last step before we start cooking is now to mince some red onion, or shallots if you prefer. I think shallots are more common in Thailand, but those require more peeling, so for a weeknight Thai-style curry paste, I use red onion. And there we go. Now I'll combine everything. That's 50 grams of red onion, 30 grams of grated ginger, 25 grams of grated garlic, 15 grams of grated lemongrass, again just sub ginger if you can't find it, 1 lime's worth of zest, 5 grams of salt, 12 grams of turmeric, 10 grams of curry powder, 3 grams of coriander, and 5 grams of paprika. Normally there would be a lot of fresh hot chilies in this paste, but based on your comments, people's heat tolerance varies widely on the internet. So I figured I would add all the heat at the end of the cooking to allow people to throttle that up and down to taste. But if you are a chili head and you want it in your paste, I would say add in 1 to 2 of these Fresno chilies minced just like the onion. Now I'll stir all that to combine, and as you see, the pulpy juiciness of the ginger, onion, and garlic help to hydrate the spices and turn this into an actual paste. And there we go. For about 5 minutes of work, we've got an amazingly flavorful, super intense base for this soup. If you're really on a time crunch though and you wanted a shortcut, I would say try to find some yellow Massaman style curry paste at the store. I got this stuff at the Asian grocery store by my house, and it's very similar to what we just made, but there's some additional spices in here that push it more towards Indian cuisine like cardamom, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Those would be good in this soup, but I'm not really sure how Thai they are.
That's pretty intense too.
I'm also pretty sure that this soup would slap hard if you just use the widely available red curry paste you see in most Asian sections of American supermarkets. That stuff has all the aromatics that we just added, but no curry powder or turmeric, so just add those in yourself. Now to cook this soup, I'll grab my 6.5 quart Dutch oven and drop it down over medium-high heat. Once that's hot, in goes 40 grams of coconut oil. If you don't keep that on hand, I'd say feel free to sub in a more neutral cooking oil like peanut or canola. Once the oil's all melted up and starting to shimmer like this, I'll drop in all of my curry paste. I'll hit that with a strong pinch of salt and then stir things to combine to get them frying up in the oil. This step really wakes up the aromatics and gives us a much more dynamic, less raw edge in the final soup. I really don't recommend going right to wet heat with curry paste. In total, I'll stir fry this for about 60 to 90 seconds, and once it's starting to smell deeply aromatic and glaze up the bottom of the pot like this, I'll come back and add 2 cans of coconut milk. As you can see, these are not the light versions of cocoa milk. In fact, they almost border on coconut cream, and that's a good thing. The soup is really all about the rich coconut broth more than anything else, and we really want full fat coconut to carry all these flavors. Once that's in and melting behind that, I'll add in 1 kilo or 4 cups of really flavorful chicken stock. This stuff is homemade, really deeply chickeny, and very gelatinous. I froze it when I made chicken stock for the chicken pot pie video. If you want a full demo on how to make amazing, deeply flavored chicken stock with tons of body, I'll link to that video below. If you don't have flavorful chicken stock, a quick shortcut would be 1 box of store-bought chicken broth with 2 tablespoons of better than bouillon roasted chicken base. After reading the label, I can't really think of a good reason why you shouldn't use this stuff. There's no major red flags as far as ingredients go, and this makes stuff taste more chickeny. It's pretty salty though, so just use it in moderation. Now, once all that's in the pot, I'll stir it to combine and bring the soup up to a hard simmer. Once it's there, I'll lay in my chicken thighs one at a time, making sure not to splash this nuclear yellow boiling broth all over myself and my shirt. Once the chicken is stirred in and my pot is back up to a simmer, I'll turn the heat down to low and do a kind of braise on these thighs for about 15 to 20 minutes. That's just enough time for the thighs to get nice and tender and give the broth a deep boost of chicken flavor. While those cook, I'll pop on the lid, grab a small saucepan and drop it down on the other side of my range over medium-high heat. Into that, I'll measure roughly 1.5 to 2 cups of high smoke point frying oil. This is generic vegetable oil, but coconut oil would also work, and it's probably a little bit healthier for you too. Just like this delicious green beverage from the sponsor of this video, Athletic Greens. You guys, I like to think of myself as a pretty healthy eater, or at least someone who tries to eat healthy, but as you can imagine with all the bread, pizza, cake, and sandwiches on this channel, that just doesn't always happen. So I've been sipping on Athletic Greens AG1 for the past 3 months for a little nutritional assist. AG1 has a blend of 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to fill in any nutritional gaps, especially when you're not eating as healthy as you like, which for me is like all the time, I guess. So now I always start my day with 1 scoop of AG1 mixed in water. I shake it up and that's it. It's been a really easy daily habit to boost my overall health and energy, and since it requires almost zero work to make it happen, it's a habit that I actually stick with. So to give AG1 a try, click the link in my description below and you'll get the immunity bundle that includes a year's supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 individual travel packs free with your first purchase. AG1 is quick, it's easy, and tastes really good, especially when you chase it with a few drips of this olive oily vitamin D. So give AG1 a try. You'll get a year's supply of that vitamin D and 5 travel packs free. Thank you, Athletic Greens. 2 minutes later, I'll come back and check on my oil temperature, and when it's in the ballpark of 350F, 175C, I'll drop in a little nest of noodles. These are Chinese-style fresh egg noodles that I got from an Asian grocery store in my neighborhood. They have an amazing chew to them and an intense, almost sulfury egg flavor that's really good in a rich, flavorful soup. Of course, not everybody is going to be able to get these, so I would say get fresh egg pasta from your grocery store or sub in ramen noodles without the flavor packet. A package of ramen will serve double duty here for this soup. Most of the noodles can be boiled and put inside of the soup, and the remainder can be crumbled on top. Those are already par fried and crispy for our pleasure. Honestly, that is a really good option in my opinion, or if you can't get any of those things, rice noodles can be fried and boiled for this soup. Back at the oil, after 20 seconds on the first side, these noodles have puffed up and are ready to flip. I'll do that and then let them fry on the back side for another 15 to 20 seconds, and once they're looking golden brown and crisped up like this, I'll move it over to a sheet tray or a plate lined with paper towel to drain. In total, this recipe makes 4 to 6 large bowls of KHAO soy, so I'll fry the rest of my nests, and once they're all drained off, I'll move this pot of oil to the back of my stove to cool off safely, and then I'll drop a pot of water to boil my noodles. As that comes up to a boil, let's finish the broth. The chicken's been simmering over here over medium-low heat for about 15 minutes, and right away when I try and grab one, you can see that it's fully cooked and just falls in half. That's very tender. I'll check another one, and yeah, these thighs are done. From there, I'll scoop the thighs out of the bowl so that I can chop them down into spoon-sized bites. If you wanted to keep the mess minimal here, you could use tongs and forks to just shred this chicken right inside the pot. Personally, I like chopped pieces of meat in my soup as opposed to longer, ropey ones because they fit on a spoon better. But before I cut this chicken, I need to get my broth seasoned up to its final form. As it stands right now, it's flavorful but totally under-seasoned. So to bring this into focus, I'm going to add 30 grams of fish sauce, 25 grams of brown sugar, and 20 to 25 grams of Sambal chili sauce. This is the part where you can really throttle the spiciness of this soup to your taste. Next, I'll finish getting my chicken ready for the soup. For that, I'll rough chop these into about 1/2-inch size pieces, give or take. These are still ripping hot though, so I'm using my tongs to keep them off my fingers. And once the thighs are bite-sized like this, I'll scoot them over into the broth and then stir everything to combine. You might notice that there is a lot of red fat sitting on top of this soup. Before you say gross, let me tell you that that's all rendered thigh fat mixed with curry-flavored coconut oil, and it's going to coat the noodles as we slurp them out of the bowl. So instead of being gross, that's gonna be amazing. The last step before I call this soup base done is to give the broth one final taste. It should be funky, bright, sweet, salty, chickeny, and basically all of the flavors possible all at the same time. I'm gonna hit this with just a splash more fish sauce to bring up the saltiness and funkiness, and then just another small dollop of chili sauce to bring a little bit more pain. Lastly, before I serve this, I'm gonna drop a strong pinch of salt into my noodle water, then 2 to 3 ounces of the Chinese style fresh egg noodles. Just like fresh pasta, these noodles are gonna cook a lot faster than dry dried pasta, about 2 to 3 minutes in total. You want them to be pretty al dente coming out of the water because they're going to be sitting in boiling broth and they'll get mushy if you cook them too hard. After 3 minutes, these noodles are looking pretty good, but there's only one way to find that out for sure. So slurp one yourself. This one still has a touch of bite to it, so I'm feeling good about it. Let's plate this up. In goes my noodles, and I'll give those a quick fluff so they don't stick together. Then I'll add in a bunch of coconut curry broth and chicken. For 3 ounces of noodles, I'm going to ladle in 12 to 16 ounces of broth. For garnish, I'll add in some sliced raw red onion. That sounds kind of weird, but it's delightful. Then some fresh cilantro and a wedge of lime to bring some acidity to this very rich broth. I'll top all that with my fried noodle nest. Oh yeah, and one more garnish that I almost forgot that's pretty important. That's pickled mustard greens. Yes, this item is not going to be available at the regular old American grocery store, but it should be at any respectable Asian food mart. These pickled mustard greens look almost cartoon yellow on one end and swampy green on the other end. They're really delicious though. They bring a mellow, crunchy, sour pop to this very rich soup. The flavor and texture is actually very, very similar to a full sour deli pickle actually, or even mellow sauerkraut. If you can find either of those in the refrigerator section of your grocery store, I'd say use those. You guys, KHAO soy is a beautiful, vibrant, comforting thing to eat, and it's not hard to make. The broth is sweet, salty, gingery, spicy, and deeply flavored with chicken. The combo of the chewy, soft boiled egg noodles and the crispy, deep fried ones bring an amazing amount of contrast and just fun. Honestly, when eating in this exact moment, I had totally forgotten that I was filming and just stood there fully immersed in the KHAO soy. It's so good. And if you haven't had it, I really hope this version makes you a fan. I really hope you try it soon. Let's eat this thing. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check out Athletic Greens AG1 to get their immunity bundle. Thank you, Athletic Greens.